After working 10 years as a real estate media provider, taking photography, videos, doing the floor plans, taking the aerial photos, and in no particular order, I'm going to run through these 17 tips I wish I had given myself when I first started. First is real estate agents. I've had in multiple situations where an agent or a director of an office would come in and say, "Yes, I'm going to shake your hand. I promise to do the work with you. By the shake of my hand, you have my word." And then 1 week later, totally goes a different direction. Unfortunately, there are some bad eggs that bring down the name of a real estate agent, and they are your clients. Though you don't have to work with all of them, and you can also navigate pretty well with good systems, culminate their feelings, being clear, but also being strong, ensuring that you're not rolling over too many times, giving too many favors, because some agents out there will definitely take advantage of you. Next up is having confidence. When you're going to a property shoot, you need to understand that you are the most experienced person, even if it is your first day out taking real estate photos. You've been studying about it. You have an interest in photography. Even if you feel you aren't experienced enough, you are still the most experienced person in the room when it comes to taking those photos. So when a client, being the owner of the house or the agent, asks the question, "Do you think this angle's better than this one?" You should include what you feel as the dominant suggestion in that scenario, even if you weren't sure. And I'm telling you, it's a little bit like fake it till you make it. If there was doubt sowed before or during the process of getting those photos done, that creates a higher chance of that job not being a successful one than even the photos being delivered half-assed. Next up is the settings. Now, I would state that the settings can change depending on how you're taking your photos. And of course, I don't only produce photography, I do videos, I do floor plans, etc. But just to knuckle it down, to make the process simple as possible, have a base point of what your settings need to be. And for me, it is setting your camera to aperture priority mode. 3 brackets, f-stop or aperture 8.0, and an ISO at a 320 would suffice for all the photography. It is again dependent on your camera, a little bit here and there. But once you've knuckled in the working settings, you have them profiled in your camera that every time you go to a shoot, it is set and forget. You're going to stop so many errors down the line, which goes to the next point, overshooting. Now, this does not mean you send unlimited photography to your clients. To me, that is a total overkill. What I found is the best solution is that you cap the photos at a good rate for the type of property you are shooting. For us, that was between 10 and 20 photos. However, I still overshoot the property. That means that I go through and shoot every single angle that I can think of. And funny enough, most of those angles are the same throughout different properties because a house in itself is a box. So that means you can shoot 40, 50, 100 photos even if you want to, and that's a little bit overkill in itself. But you can cull those photos down, archive the ones that you aren't going to deliver to the client. If in doubt, a client's like, "Oh, actually, I don't like that photo of this bedroom. Do you have another angle?" Imagine that you limited your photography to 10 photos and you only took those 10 photos. Guess what? You're getting all your gear ready again. You're going back to the property shoot. You maybe charge a fee, which means the client's going to be a little bit ticked off because they think you should have got the better angle anyway, even though it's not the better angle, but you don't have any proof of that anyway. So you've got this confrontation to deal with. But if you took those extra photos, guess what? They're at your disposal. It takes a quick second to screenshot it for your client, let them proof it and be like, "You know what? This one isn't as good, but I did take it and I deliver you the better one. I'm happy to get this edited for you. Just let me know." And then in that instance, if they accept to get it edited, editor gets it done within the hour, sent to the client, everything's moving forward. Next up is calendar. Now, this is the first and foremost important side to when you start getting a little bit busier. And when I started my company with my brother, when we started getting busy, we didn't have a working proper calendar to think of that. We actually got into a situation where we had triple booked between the two of us. And of course, one of them had the wrong address. And also, that one with the wrong address, the timing was booked wrong with the client. So we ended up causing a massive stir. We lost the client that day as well. But just in essence, when you are organizing your shooting, start off with at least a calendar. When somebody books in, they give you a call or something of that nature, put them in a calendar, make sure that is nice and clear, right? Super, super critical. And furthermore, this moves towards systems. How are people from start to finish getting in contact with you to getting your services to getting the end result? Understanding that you are a business. What you do can be broken down into different processes. And the more refined you can make that, the clearer you can make that for yourself and your clients, the better your operation is going to be. The more time you're going to have on the hands, the better outcomes you're going to have for your clients, and just so much more in between. All of that is going to be so much more powerful for you as a service offering, as a business, as a job. So it is something to really knuckle in, making sure that you're looking at systems and thinking in that mentality every single day. Now, jumping into invoicing, you should be invoicing smarter. One of the biggest downfalls when I started getting a lot of work, that I had accumulated $40,000 in overdue invoices. This is when I had 2 people on the payroll, also pay my brother out of the business. Plus I had another 4 contractors conducting different shoots whilst I was still outsourcing my photo editing, plus started hiring 2 people in the Philippines as a virtual assistant and a dedicated video editor. There was so much chaos happening at that point. I learned a lot from that situation. But one of the biggest changes I made during that time was to change the way we did invoicing. We used to invoice per job. And then basically, when the 30 days came when that invoice was due, we had to start following it up. And think of that. If you're following up invoices and sending invoices on an individual basis, it gets completely messy. Now, we created one invoice per client, which simplified things down. Follow up for us totally died down as well. It wasn't a full-time gig from someone in our team, which is our virtual assistant at the time, and instead became a very manageable operation, plus cutting that $40,000 that was sitting there overdue all the way down to only a few thousand. The next point is the focusing of editors. And I would say hiring editors on an internal basis, like a full-time basis, is a fair bit tricky as you're starting to grow. But in the real estate media industry, I'd say outsourcing photo editing is one of the main things most of us do. Back in 2016, we decided to go in this route. And to be honest, it was the pivotal moment in our business because we freed up time, then we got time to go out and shoot more. And it happened basically instantaneously. It was pretty godsend, call it that. It was unexpected in a way that we thought we'll try it. And then in that point onwards, we became full-time shooters. You can run your business however you wish, but I honestly think if you can go out there and shoot an extra 2 to 3 jobs throughout the day, and you aren't killing yourself into the morning and then killing yourself the next day, getting up and do it all again, that is not a sustainable way to be a real estate photographer. Hiring talented editors that do it day in, day out, even overnight for you, so the next day the photos are there ready for you to deliver to your clients, is insanely powerful for your real estate photography business. The next point is project management. And honestly, this ties everything together, especially if you do have multitude of projects happening and you can't keep accustomed to what is happening between them. The client's calling you and be like, hey, I need another photo for this property, or this issue came up on this property. Would you happen to be able to fix this up? Or I was concerned about with this happening. Did anything happen with that? And you can have that information ready for your client when you are in dialogue with them. Plus, of course, making sure all the media is getting done in due because it's nice and organized. You're not missing anything. You can concise everything all together at once. Admin. Now, hiring an admin or even a virtual assistant really changed the game for me because it meant that a lot of the general tasks that happen throughout each and every day can be organized by somebody else. So you can utilize yourself, your skills, which might be being out there in the field, being a real estate photographer, way more. That means that they can organize any emails, the delivery of any jobs that go in and out of your shoots. And of course, if any client had any feedback, any changes that were required, that admin can be the medium point for all that information to come in and out between your jobs, your clients, and your editors. They were just a key pillar in having things run very, very fluid, plus freeing up my time to focus on more important tasks of the business. Now, I mention this as speed is because speed and time efficiencies is so, so important. And I honestly feel one of our success points was making sure it was core to what we do as a company. Being effective and making sure good quality output is really, really important. But what is just as important is efficiency. The faster you complete a project means that you have more time to begin another one. And that means if you are able to shoot in a faster method, you will be able to shoot more throughout the day, which means you will be able to shoot maybe 5 homes per day instead of just doing the 2. And then that changes dramatically the size of the business that you can be producing. So speed is a very efficient thing when it comes to real estate media. And as a bit of a tip, I stopped using a tripod. I started using my hands as the stabilizers towards taking real estate media, just by making sure that my minimum shutter was set to 1/15. And from that point onwards, I started shooting handheld. Not only speeds things up, but it actually lets me compose much, much better. Another thing of being able to produce a lot more by being fast is that you get to have more reps. Having repetition lets you develop yourself and your skills way, way faster. You will develop more by doing 10 photo shoots in the week rather than if you did one. You could even be studying in books, researching, watching YouTube, etc. But if you aren't doing the reps, you're not actually learning. And I learned this from going through getting my degree. I didn't put in the reps. I just did the bare minimum, got through it because I honestly didn't like school. But once I got out in the field and became a real estate photographer, got out in the field and pushed myself that I had to do the reps. I had to do the job. And then I started growing. I started getting more and more jobs. That became core to my development. And that's when I started learning more. So getting the reps. Now, if you can't even get the reps, you can't even get your first job, you need to understand outreach. And outreach is just reaching out to, of course, real estate agents, as we're talking here, as their main client. And funny enough, real estate agents love to put all their contact information out into the world as much as possible. So it shouldn't be too hard to find the information and to get in front of them if you need to. And I would just caveat this too is don't ever be afraid of offering free content. Yes, you might lose out, but even if it was 50%, the long-term value a real estate agent will provide you is so, so much greater than most other industries. This is such a repetitive business. You can get one good client and you'll last a lifetime. And it's unlike a wedding where they're getting married once. Here, they're going to sell properties each and every week. So consider that. You're going to be getting jobs from them all the time. So if you're offering them a free trial to get in the door, that may go a really, really long way. And it is honestly worthwhile. Packaging. Now, I mentioned packaging is because initially we subsection, 2 of us are going out to the photo shoots, and we, of course, will clash at the shoot. One will do the photos, one will do the video. Maybe someone there will be doing the floor plan. And when that happens, say if the shoot took 1 hour, you're paying for 3 hours of that 1 hour. But what if you had 3 people go out to different shoots? It just equates so much better. So the way we want to structure things is when we go out to the field and we go to a property, we want to package and complete as much as possible. And we'll happily give a discount if we were providing more, which ends up being such a win-win scenario for everyone involved, the homeowner, the agent, and of course, us as the real estate photographer. So being multitasked is actually very helpful in being a complete service for them to utilize, but also is much more efficient, effective, speeds things up as well. And to even extend further, you need to understand that your client can also get other media done with you. So for instance, if you are doing real estate videos, you might really consider getting into social media content. Even if you're doing real estate photography, you might also want to do the additional side of social media content. When we first started, social media wasn't structured like it is today. Reels didn't exist. There was videos. And for us, creating profile videos for clients, whether it was for their agency, them personally, or going out and shooting auctions, all had additional value put for them being partnered with us. So being a service provider that offers additional content in some form or matter, or services for that matter, lets them tie into you to being a well-regarded lifetime asset. One of the biggest parts of when we started to grow, we started considering hiring. And I think most of us do the same, is we think when we come to hire, we should hire another photographer. But to be honest, I honestly think hiring a photographer is the last thing on your list. What you should be doing is sorting out everything else in your business, utilizing editors, utilizing better systems to free up your time until you're at a point where you know you shouldn't be making those bits of content at the property. Hiring a photographer is a very risky business. They might not feel aligned to what you're doing. They might be seeing that you're doing photos and videos and a floor plan package for $1,000, but they're going out there and getting paid their $25, $30, $50 per hour. And to them, they feel a little bit desensitized, thinking, man, I could get a whole week's worth of pay just by doing this shoot. And the weird thing is, it doesn't equate to that, but people perceive it as that. And that's what is the hard issue, is it is the perception that is going to bite you in the butt. Honestly, always come back to the same conclusion. Utilize contractors and help each other out. I have a bunch of friends who also are in the property media space, my brother still included. And honestly, the best way to go about it is understand that are they your competitors? Not really. They're your helping hands. You can grow together. There is so many houses being shot and being sold. Utilize them. If that isn't the case, hire different contractors that need more work. Of course, you still want to vet them. Of course, you still want to maintain your quality, which means you need to ensure they're being looked after. You need to ensure that you're looking after your clients so much that you have enough goodwill to sustain that clientele. And I'll still say, I'm still trying to structure this out as best as possible to help other people going out there and shooting content, which leads to me launching, a school community and supporting people in that regard. And of course, when I've ventured to Vietnam, setting up Saigon Creators Network just to help people out, because I'm at a point where my skill set is more about developing others than it is about going out and doing a photo shoot, for instance. So when you are trying to hire someone, really consider deeply how it serves them, not just yourself, and really make sure that it serves them. If it doesn't, then it's not the right fit. That's my advice on that. Tricky one, but yeah, that's a very, very, very tricky one. And one of the last points I want to put in here is equipment doesn't matter. It matters to a degree, obviously, but the high-end stuff, it doesn't matter. I actually use an A6700 right now, and that is more so by choice because I went through cameras in a certain regard. So I went the D5500, jumped into an A6500, which was brand new, and then I was jumping between different cameras between that range, 63. I tested out an A5100, which still produced good enough results because the sensor is still very much the same as that 6500. Then, of course, I ended up jumping into a 7S3. And that camera, of course, has all the bells and whistles for video. And I would more so say it has everything that you need for real estate photography as well. To be honest, 12 megapixels is completely fine. Nobody blinked an eye. If you want to disagree on that, well, go speak to all my clients. They had no idea of the change that I went from a low-grade 24 megapixel camera to then a 12 megapixel camera. And then guess what? When I jumped from the A7S3 to the Sony A1, nobody blinked an eye again. Now I was living on the number one camera of the Sony range. Of course, a newer version is already released, but that's where I was at. And to be honest, nobody expected me to charge more. Nobody expected me to charge less. It was all the same. So I decided once I actually had a bit of a drop of the Sony A1, I decided to test out the Sony FX30 at the core reason that equipment does not matter to a degree. The FX30 was fine. It did not have a mechanical shutter, which meant my settings of taking a continuous bracketed shot was not an option. I had to take single bracketed shots, which I did, handheld, and I would mash that button 3 times and I would still get the same output. And you know what? No client blinked an eye again. Moving from full frame to APS-C, nobody noticed a thing. Everyone was still ecstatic with the results we were producing. So does it matter? Doesn't. Now I use the A6700. It's the same sensor as the FX30. And to be honest, nobody blinked an eye again, obviously. Now that I have a viewfinder, does it matter? It doesn't. You don't need the best and highest end gear to get a really successful real estate media company going. So that's it. That's the end of this video. I hope that you liked it, and stick around for more if you liked it. And stick around for more if you want to see more. Goodbye. You don't need to stick around anymore. You got all the value. I'll let you go. Right? Did I miss anything? There's probably way more stuff to share. Hence why you should keep watching, right? That's basically what it's like. Keep watching, because I'm going to make more of this stuff. How's that sound? How's that sound for you, buddy boy? Yeah. Anyway, let's go. Bye-bye.